Hello everyone, welcome back to another stream. I apologize for being so late. I had things that I had to deal with, so I'm here when I am now. Yeah. Fortunately, I just couldn't make it back a little bit earlier. So, hope you're all doing well, and, alright. So, on yesterday's stream, we more or less finished everything in Stormvale. I'm not exactly sure who all is here, especially with the, big old delay, but for everybody who has dropped in and has been chatting, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being so patient. I truly do appreciate that. So yeah, hopefully enough of you guys saw that I might start late in the title. Maybe I should have put it earlier in the title, but yeah. Alright, so Iman, Buster Suds, Hilko, Galamoth, Nightmare, Jay Dixon, Man Ray, Forgeborge, and I think that's all. There might have been some earliers. Anyway. Nice to see all of you again. And Mortis, nice to see you. I thought you were Nightbot for a second. Alright. And Yushu, nice to see you. Okay. Actually, I forgot to get Nightbot in the stream, as a matter of fact. There we go. Alright, so before we ended off the stream, we did talk to Arena as Hayata in her first location, and we gave her the Shibiri grape from the guy that was in Stormvale Castle. I think the only thing we really haven't done in Stormvale is go to like this little place that's a little bit north from the Guardian Lion, but there's really not a ton there. I guess there's like the Banished Knight on the rooftop. I think there's like some weapon up there, but I'm not too concerned about that. And then, oh yeah, I guess the true last thing we did was talked to Bach. So, DJ2K, nice to see you. Welcome on into the stream, and Ponyboy. All right. I said we would start off today's stream by going and talking to Thops, so that's what we will do. I honestly thought his name was Thops for a long time, but it sounds like he pronounces it like Thops with a big O. So we get to the Church of Irith. Get another Sacred Tear. Which is always good stuff until you have too many. Let's do our cinematic zoom in. Hey, Galama. Yeah, we did market a couple of days back, I think. Can't wait to watch whoever's playing in the Red Bull event tomorrow get stuck on a minor enemy. Oof, it's going to be rough coming into these next few days for Shadow of the Erdtree information. Miyazaki had a new PC Gamer interview, and this new interview was kind of annoying because there's like a lot of just irrelevant text, and then there's like a lot of stuff kind of spoiling what's to come. So I just kind of skimmed it very, very, very quickly. It didn't seem like a ton of new stuff. I mean, hold on, let me try to rephrase that. It didn't seem like a lot of direct comments on the base game, other than like Mikola is straight up not having a good time and things like that.
You're tarnished, aren't you? Then perhaps you could spare some runes. Believe it or not, I studied glintstone sorceries at the Academy of Rea Lucaria. For a small donation, I'd be happy to share my knowledge.
I'm not sure if I would say that Thops' eyes are like gold or not. Certainly not as gold as Melena's, maybe just dim gold. But probably not if he's actually tarnished. And our Bluntstone friend here is only asking for a donation of 10 runes, which kind of reminds me of like going to Junon in Final Fantasy VII and bribing the guards for like 15 gil, which is virtually nothing. So my man's seems to have taken on a vow of poverty in addition to being a Bluntstone.
Well, bless you, bless you. You're a true saint. My name is Thops. Presuming you're interested, I can teach you sorceries as promised, only none of them are particularly great.
I know he might have some like different dialogue if you haven't talked to Selin, but I just forget what the differences are. So let's talk to him before studying his actual sorcery. I'll probably buy one and then see if he says anything different. So he sells Glintstone Pebble, Glintstone Arc, and Starlight. Oh, Starlight's probably the one I want to buy, unironically. Actually, I mean, I'm not a sorcerer, so it doesn't really matter. So, Glintstone Pebble is the most basic Glintstone sorcery of the Academy of Rea Lucaria. The Glintstone serves as a conduit, launching magical projectiles at foes. This sorcery can be cast repeatedly and while in motion. This is a universal first step on the journey to true knowledge of sorcery. So the fact that glintstone itself serves as the conduit is interesting. And I feel like I should have more developed thoughts about it than I actually do. Anyway, let's go to Glintstone Arc. I feel like, doesn't Sellen sell this too? Maybe we've already read this. Glintstone Arc is granted to sorcerers who depart from the academy to embark on journeys in order to fend off large packs of would-be adversaries. Fools often roam in packs. Yeah, we've definitely seen this one before. And then Starlight is granted to sorcerers who depart from the academy to embark on journeys. Even during the blackest nights, sojourns underground, or imprisonment in jail, the stars are never far from a sorcerer's side. So I tend to take these kind of spells as being older style spells of the academy magic because they're more directly related to stars than the moon, the heterodoxy that was brought with the Karian royal family, and lunar queen or full moon queen Renala and whatnot. Hey, House Redwine, you wonder NPC and merchants use runes on? Oh, what they use them on? Yeah, that's something I've also wondered for pretty much all of their games, like Dark Souls. I guess Bloodborne kind of makes a little bit more sense if you like look at the messengers. Maybe not so much with patches, but I guess that still kind of makes sense. But at least with like Demon Souls and Dark Souls, souls were allegedly tied to like one's mental lucidity, so it would have made sense that people wanted more souls to stay lucid. Although that doesn't exactly seem to work out by any stretch of the imagination for what's his face in Dark Souls 2? Malden? Yeah, Malden, I think. Florgeboard says merchants use the runes to pay Elimer for quote-unquote protection. That is an excellent headcanon right there. I might adopt that. Nightmare says, are there any interesting tropes for Thops? Maybe he'll show us the ropes, but he doesn't have a lot of hope. I see what you're peddling there. So let's go ahead and talk to him before trying to buy something.
Apologies, friend. I'm afraid my meager sorceries are no match for your generosity. Oh, right. I can tell you what I know about this place. That should help a bit. You've seen that structure to the north, towering over the water. That's the Academy of Rea Lucaria, where we study glintstone sorceries. Only its doors have been closed for quite some time now. After they declared they wouldn't interfere with the shattering, the Academy cast repelling seals on the east gate leading to the capital, and the south gate leading here. As you might have guessed, the seals are still active, making entry to the Academy impossible without a glintstone key. And so I'm stuck here. A fledgling sorcerer with little chance of acquiring a key. When they cast the seals, I'd just popped out. And now I'm uprooted from my place of learning.
Right now, Thops' line right there at the very end is one of the most troubling in the entire game because it can really cast a lot of shadows, pun intended, I suppose, on the understanding of the timeline as it relates to the Tarnished. Because if Thops is a Tarnished character, which by all intents and purposes he seems to be, since he could be frenzied and death blighted and has like a frenzied, or not a frenzied, but a Tarnished model, then what was a Tarnished doing in the Academy of Rea Lucaria before the Shattering happened? Were the Tarnished already called back to the lands between? Have we been fed a bunch of lies from the Two Fingers? That might be worth digging more into to see if there's any item descriptions which spell it out a bit more. I know we do have the Rusted Anchor, which says that it is said only one group of Tarnished was left behind from a boat, but I don't know, just a lot of stuff doesn't match up. And so another potential way of like reading things here would be that Thops might be lying or misunderstanding his situation, but that just doesn't really seem to mesh super well with the vibe check that he's passing along right now. Thanks, House of Redwine. All right, so let's learn a little bit more about that glintstone key. MK asks, his eyes aren't golden? No, so far all of the Tarnished that we've met have not had golden eyes.
Why not find yourself a glintstone key? Without one, you can't pass through the Academy, and you'll never reach the Erdtree capital. And if you find an extra glintstone key, perhaps, once you've tied up all your loose ends, and I can be very patient, would you consider donating it to me? I know it. I'm a bluntstone. Nary a hint of talent for sorcery. But still, my place is at the academy.
Actually, now that I think about it, there's really a lot of Thops and his quest that's really annoying. So his line about popping out from the Lucarian Academy during the Shattering is annoying. Also, the fact that he dies the way that he does is kind of annoying. But anyway, I can forgive him for all of that for calling himself a bluntstone. It's just a very funny insult to me.
Find yourself a glintstone key. Without one, you can't pass through the academy. And you'll never reach the Erdtree capital.
So since we've already talked to Selwyn, we can give him some dialogue about her. And like I said a moment ago, I'm pretty sure he has a different set of dialogue if he becomes like your first quote-unquote official teacher, but maybe not. I might be misremembering that. And then Taunga and Urenda, nice to see you again.
You've taken an apprenticeship with Selwyn. Well, that is something. Selwyn was well known. The most promising sorceress in the history of the academy. I followed her at school. But there may as well have been an ocean between us. But Selwyn was expelled from the academy, accused of unthinkable treatment of certain sorcerers, under the name of the Graven Witch. I still don't believe the accusations. The illustrious Selwyn would never do such things.
So as far as the Japanese goes on that dialogue, it's a little bit more on the nose, because rather than saying illustrious, which is a little bit more tepid in English, he says that Selwyn is kawaii in Japanese, or cute. So it's pretty obvious that he has a thing for her, which I think people could still pick up even with this dialogue here, the way that he kind of like fawns over her. So that's not the biggest of deals, but I'm sure some people might be more interested in that. So Nightmare said, Crunchy's latest video claims a similar time is convoluted / time travel narrative is afoot in this game, and all the stuff with Thops popping out of the academy and the Tarnished could reinforce his thoughts. And then Gallimah said they can't figure out whether America commissioned Hugh to smith a weapon to kill herself specifically, or if that's just what Roderica wants you to do with it. Another potential thought could be that America could have wanted to kill the Elden Beast, but it could have also been meant to have been turned on her, because there really aren't a lot of candidates for gods to slay for Hugh's weapons to work on, you know? So it's essentially either America / Radagon, who she calls not a god, or the Elden Beast. So I could see arguments going for pretty much all three of them, with a much lesser emphasis placed on Radagon. If you're tarnished, not named Godfrey, or the main character, your life sucks. Yeah. Gallimah said it'd be cool if having a max weapon made some sort of difference. It's optional, but seemingly narratively significant. Yeah, that is one of the things that does kind of disappoint me, because if we get a plus 25, or, you know, a fully upgraded weapon, I should say, rather, that is capable of slaying a god, then why is it functionally no different from weapons that aren't necessarily able to slay a god? It's a bit disappointing there. Okay, so Iman, thank you for the quote. Thops rather. For learning my paltry sorceries, I never imagined that a bluntstone like myself would have the chance to play teacher. Thank you. Gallimah had forgotten Roderica tells us to kill Queen Marika, who cursed us all. Yeah. And then Nightmare tends to agree with Crunchy's interpretation of time being convoluted in Elden Ring, similarly to the Souls game. It connects a lot of narratives, including this one. I don't know how I feel about that. Not that I disagree. I think it just depends on what we all mean by convoluted, because I can imagine that can mean different things to different people. So, for instance, in Dark Souls 1, the Solaire quote of time being convoluted in Japanese is a little closer to time has become stagnant, which I think has some pretty interesting connotations, because it would imply that time isn't advancing as it should. And then I think that's corroborated somewhat with the Crestfallen Warriors dialogue about how Logan was a hero from hundreds of ages ago. Like, why is he here in Lordran now? So it seems as though, like, his story should have already been told, but he's still here as though time had, like, reverted for him. So, with time being canonically light in Dark Souls, there's a lot of stuff which ties into the fading of the first flame, which allows that narrative to have a lot more weight for me than this kind of weird construct in Elden Ring where the Elden Ring governs the metaphysical laws of the universe, but it's not necessarily omnipotent, and the gods aren't necessarily omniscient. So if time keeps being looped, how does that actually function? I mentioned in my video about the Grace of Old that I think we could have like a functionally Groundhog Day type story beat occurring with how the Tarnished gets resurrected at morning every time they die at a site of grace. So I think we might have a Groundhog Day due to the law of regression making things become functionally immutable. But because karma is not set in stone, you could still potentially fix things if you live your Groundhog Day the right way, I guess. It would be my current headcanon cope until we get something more concrete, potentially in the DLC. And I think Miyazaki, in that new interview, which I just very barely glanced at, had said that we might not get a lot of answers to the questions of the base game, but he wants to help, like, stoke imaginations in the DLC. So, oh boy, that just means all of our answers are going to, or all of our questions are going to get answered, guys. I don't know. And Galamoth just read that today about the stagnation thing, that human dregs are apparently more like stagnant humanity, and the deep was like a body of liquid stagnant humanity or something. Yeah, so I don't think like the deep was initially stagnant, but I feel like because the age kept being prolonged, it caused the deep and the cycle of the universe to stop cycling, and so the deep became stagnant, and that's why all of the dregs of humanity and darkness pooled and oozed and congealed down in its depths to create things like human dregs. Right, so that should be it pretty much, unless we pick up this.
Back to learn another? Why, of course. Back to learn another? Why, of course.
Kind of reminds me of Limmy. Just thinking of, like, Kill Jesta. Was that skit called, like, Adventure Quest? Something like that? I've honestly only seen, like, a very tiny amount of Limmy's sketches, and I want to check out more. Because I've really enjoyed what little I've seen, but I just haven't gotten around to it for one reason or another. So as we come away from the Church of Irith, we run into a graveyard. And it is very fascinating to me that most of these quote-unquote churches of America do have graveyards next to them. Especially if people are of the opinion that America's reign began with the removal of destined death and whatnot. And of course, we don't necessarily know if destined death is tied into like natural death or if it's incompatible with like normal graveyards, but at least it shows that Erdtree burial, or at least burial at the Erdtree's roots, wasn't as much of a concern for when these churches were built. So we just picked up the Academy Scroll. I thought there was something kind of important around here, but I just couldn't remember what. Glad I checked. And now we'll go into Liurnia. I'm not sure what path I want to take through here, to be honest. Normally, I don't really bother interacting with too much here. Other than, like, Sites of Grace to speed up fast travel. Flintstone Craftsman's Cookbook. So I think in 1.0, Patches ended up being here instead of this nomadic merchant. And then later on, they replaced Patches and the merchant, and they put Patches in the Scenic Lake. And I don't think that merchant existed in the scenic lake. I don't remember where he went. Anyway, let's go see what he has to say.
You're new around here. Surprised you found me in my little nook. No matter, no matter. Your money's as good as anyone else's. Why don't you take a look at my wares? Oh, but don't ask me how I got my hands on them, eh?
I do like that. Don't ask me how I got my hands on them, because he has the astrologer set, which is one of the more titillating items in the game, I think. So, in addition to the astrologer set, he's got the kite shield. Oh, and he has a lantern too? I forgot about that. I'll need to remember that so I don't necessarily have to go to Weeping Peninsula at all. So, kite shield is not too important. It's got a bird on it. But astrologer hood is a hood fashioned from supple cloth, worn by those who look to the cosmos above. They read fate in the stars and are said to be the heirs of glintstone sorcerers. But alas, the night sky no longer cradles fate. So, if we take this line of dialogue, or if we take this item description at face value, it'd make it sound as though the astrologers are actual heirs of glintstone sorcerers, which is arguable to an extent. But in a couple other items, I believe the Stargazer heirloom, which Rennala has, but definitely in the Preceptor set, we're told that the glintstone sorcerers are actually descended from the astrologers. So this is why I tend to impress upon people to be skeptical of items that do have hearsay within them. And one of the worst parts about making this stipulation is that things like it is said, they say, toyu in Japanese is just used so ubiquitously that it allows one to question almost any item in the game just because it's used damn near rhetorically. But there are instances when you can kind of tell that there might be something more at play here. So generally, I would say it's fine to take this stuff at face value, but to mentally put an asterisk next to these kind of descriptions and be prepared to have your opinions change on them over time if you get seemingly contradictory information later. So, I know some people don't necessarily think there would be a contradiction to say that the astrologers are the heirs of glintstone sorcerers, but I personally don't see it that way, and I do think this would be a contradiction if this was stated matter-of-factly and not as hearsay. George always uses this guy for the lantern. Makes sense. And Galamoth says, wasn't Rennala said to be an astrologer? Yes, and also the Stargazer heirloom is literally called the astrologer's heirloom in Japanese. So the term astrologer comes from, is it Seimi? Like star viewer? And that is the exact same term that's used for things like in the astrologer hood. So it's the same pair of kanji. They just call it Stargazer in some instances and astrologer in others. And then Iman asks, what do they mean by the sky no longer cradles fate? That's a very good question, and I'm glad you brought that up. So, we're told of two possible events which could have decoupled fate from the night sky, and the first, probably the most important one, comes from the telescope, which says, this is an astrology tool used by members of the Karian royal family, a stolen part of a larger instrument, allows the viewer to better see faraway things. Quote, during the age of the Erdtree, Karian astrology withered on the vine. The fate once written in the night skies had been fettered by the Golden Order. I guess it's Celestial Dew, which makes it a little bit clearer. So anyway, this tells us that fate in the night sky was fettered by the Golden Order, yet that fate seemed to be tied to Karian astrology. And we're told later on that Rennala used the full moon to beguile/bewitch the members of the Academy of Rea Lucaria, who would later go on to make her a queen, essentially. And so, in addition to all of that, we're told that the black moon of Noxtella was the guide of countless stars. Now, there might be some functional differences between the full moon, the black moon, and the dark moon that we don't fully know, but if the black moon can guide the fate in the night sky via guiding the stars, then I think Rennala probably did something similar because many astrologers were studying the stars, and they became beguiled by her. So that's like a pretty good thematic connection between them. So if Renala was able to guide the night stars with her moon, then she might have been able to guide the fate in the night sky as well, aka like the essential... how do I rephrase this? It would be like the essential mechanism by which Carian astrology could flourish, perhaps, using the moon to control the stars. And then once Renala wed Radagon, or we don't actually know the event, I should take that back. There was something with the Golden Order which caused the Carian astrology to wither on the vine. I think there are a couple of explanations which could work with this, because Muriel tells us that, quote-unquote, the fate of the moon was conjoined with the order of the Erdtree when Renala wed Radagon. So that could be one way the Carian astrology could have gotten withered, if, like, the fate of the moon essentially was given to the Erdtree. Another reading would be that when Radagon left Renala, it said that her heart went with him. And so I think... metaphorically speaking, it would work out really well that if we want to like compare Renala to a flower or something else that can wither, that if her heart left with Radagon, I could see like her vitality withering as well, and that could tie into Carian astrology withering on the vine, so to speak. And then I think the final major possibility, as far as we have the story now, and maybe the DLC will give us some more information, would potentially be Radagon arresting the cycles of the night sky by challenging them. And that kind of gets tied into how Selin, a long-standing Carian weed, possesses immortality while Radahn holds the fate in the night skies captive, or the stars in the night sky captive. And that also ties into the fate of Ranni as well. And maybe also potentially Miquella, depending on how exactly we need to access the DLC. So, a very good question. And Iman was asking, will there be some stream on Red Bull today? Yes. So the 15th, depending on your time zone, which will be like most people in the world at this point, there is supposed to be a stream, a Red Bull event, where they're going to have like a bunch of content creators do stuff with the DLC. I don't exactly know the particulars. So I'm going to avoid all of that stuff because I don't want to get like any more spoilers or like super big information until like the DLC actually releases. Just because I feel like I would have more enjoyment with going in a little bit more blind. I feel like the trailer stuff is just little enough information to keep up a lot of the intrigue for me. And then a scholar was asking, is that why Renala needed a child from... Sorry, is that why Marika needed a child from Renala? One that could stop fate? We don't really know. I tend to think that Marika may have wanted to use the moon to eclipse the sun to keep death and death at bay, and I've wondered if Marika needed Renala's Carian lunar magic as a method to control the Rune of Death, or to be able to pluck it from the Elden Ring, but I don't really know. That's just kind of like some tinfoil headcanon on my part there. And then Milua pra Frente Soko, nice to see you. Welcome into the stream. Talking about Carians, I know if in Japanese the Blythe is named as Ranni's stepbrother or adopted brother. So I would need to double check the kanji, but it's essentially the exact same way that Malekith is referred to as Marika's brother. I'm pretty sure it's meant in the sense of like a non-biological sibling, but I don't necessarily think it has to mean like stepbrother the way that we would normally think of a stepbrother in English. So is it stepbrother with a hyphen or no? Blythe is Lady Renala's stepbrother. Yeah, so it does use ototo, but the type of kanji that it uses with it is kind of more analogous to brother-in-law. So you could say like stepbrother, but it also emphasizes that Blythe is younger than Ranni, which shouldn't be a surprise. And this is the exact same way that Malekith is referred to in other locations. And I guess to be clear, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be read as Ototo. It could be read as, like, Gite. But I don't know enough about the intricacies of, like, Japanese families and, like, in-laws and stuff to have, like, a better explanation for you offhand. I should probably, like, look into that stuff as well. I like, a lot of East Asian family stuff gets pretty confusing. I was pretty good with, like, remembering Korean family ties for a while, but then I kind of, like, never used it and kind of forgot about it. And that's kind of, like, been the same with Japanese. Like, probably learned this stuff a long time ago, but it does, like, it never comes up. At least, I mean, hold on. I mean, it does, but, like, not for stuff, not, like, from a literal shadow of a person trying to, like, figure out whether they mean, like, a literal brother-in-law or more like a sworn brother type thing. I would need to look that up. And then Enter Y asks, how does this tie into the primeval current, if at all? That's a phenomenal question, which is really hard to answer because it seems like the primeval current would be even farther removed from the moon and the stars that are closer to the lands between, because we're told that, like, Lusat, or was it Azur, observes, like, the end of a galaxy and it crushed him. But I feel like the primeval current is just, like, beyond the visible stars, if that makes any sense. And Mao, nice to see you again. I did not look at the quality of life updates, unfortunately, so I don't have any thoughts on that, Red Knight. And then Bruxus asked, has anyone explored if the Nox Black Moon might be the eclipse to free memories and souls from the light hewn into the Erdtree? So that is, I actually, maybe I didn't put this in my gold and silver video. So there's a lot of stuff I ended up cutting out of my gold and silver video. I know I talked about the eclipse briefly, and I think I floated it, but I don't think I elaborated on it very much, just because that video was already long as hell. And I didn't want to just, like, completely flood people with information, which I was already doing at that point anyway, to be honest. MK forgets the family tie names in your own language, let alone Japanese. I feel that. Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, what is your native language then? Alright, so I think that's it. Oh yeah, we checked out the astrologer stuff, so yeah, we could go ahead and move on to, like, the Laskyar ruins, and then go see Patches. So Mao said, you wondered if the primeval current is the Elden Ring's equivalent to the Great Attractor. Would you mind elaborating? Because I don't know if I'm thinking of the right thing with calling something the Great Attractor. So we got our East Liurnia map fragments. And so, this isn't too relevant, but seeing all of the wraith colors in water specifically made me try to, like, take a mental inventory of all the other places we see wraith colors, and whether or not they're kind of related to, like, fluid or water in general. But I guess that doesn't fully work out for the bottom of the Halig tree, where the revenants spawn. Because I know that we get some wraith colors in Shaded Castle, which kind of has, like, a liquid in it. Yeah, I guess it just doesn't fully work. But yeah, and I guess we have a site of grace pointing us forward. I have not shown off Liurnia, or, like, Rea Lucaria, rather. So Liurnia of the Lakes is flooded as, like, this lake town. I'm pretty sure this is nothing. Actually, I don't even remember where these warp gates go. I should probably, like, go into them. Because with fast travel, I guess there's really not a lot of incentive to use these gates to begin with. I know I'm going the wrong way. I can't pull out my map because I pissed everything off. So is this Raya? Yes.
Hello.
Am I still in combat? It's annoying. Alright, so next to Raya, we have what I tend to call the Primeval Current statue for no other good reason than it has the same apron on it as Lusat and Azur, who are Primeval Current sorcerers.
Hello. Right over here. Hello. It's rather chilly here, isn't it? My mistress sent me off on an errand, but I was accosted by a ruffian. And now I'm in a bind. Could I ask you lend a hand? Perhaps. That thug made off with a precious necklace. I need someone to retrieve it. Only, he too is tarnished. If you've any qualms confronting your own, I shall find another.
You know what? Now I kind of wonder if Raya got her pendant stolen from her on purpose to see if you would be willing to dirty our hands for the Volcano Manor. I guess we don't really need to kill him, but maybe that's just kind of like an indirect way of testing the Tarnished and whether or not they have like the drive to kill for the manor. So MK is Turkish, and I guess a lot of other people are having issues with familial relationships as well, in understanding those in their languages. Yeah, I feel like it can be pretty complicated unless you have to like deal with it a lot directly. Mao says the great attractor is an in real life thing. It's a great gravitational force pulling the galaxies around our space in the universe and is out of view. Is that actually a real life thing? Because I've heard many conflicting things about it from the little that I understand, and that the universe is expanding, but I don't necessarily think it's because of like a gravitational thing pulling everything away. Bruxus says Raya's totally a honeypot. Okay. Galamouth was a little disappointed there weren't actually any lakes in Liurnia. I should check out Kaitail's recent stream. The discoveries they showed were so insane. Cool, Donut. So it's been nice to see you again. What were they talking about, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, there's the Lake of Poison underneath the Albinauric Village. Okay. And then Scholar was asking, isn't this boy-girl statue Mikola? I don't think so. I feel like this is definitely older because it has the older Raya Lucaria sigil on it, which should have existed long before Mikola was born. Has nothing to do with the universe expanding? Okay. If you send a comment on the video itself or on the Discord, that'll help remind me to check it out after stream.
Oh, thank you dearly. What a blessing that we've met like this. The thug should be resting at an abandoned home down the way. Please, I must have the necklace back. The thug should be resting at an abandoned home down the way. Please.
Alright, so that's pretty much our goal to go get Blackguard. So I guess we have glidstone fireflies that you can't loot. That'd be one way that I would understand what's going on here. So I really like the night sky in Liurnia, which is kind of on brand for like this being the home of the sorcerers and whatnot. The home away from home of the sorcerers and astrologers. Because you can actually like look up and see kind of galaxy type stuff going on. I should have talked to Patches first for him to give us like a little bit of a tidbit about Raya. But I saw the bird eye telescope and I'm like, okay, I know Raya's right here, so. Whoops. Cheers for that. The symbol on the back of the giant Nox Throne's giant lady statues are the symbol that's also underneath Mikola's statue. Oh yeah, I know about that. They kind of look like a leaflet type thing. Not maybe that's the wrong word, but maybe like vines. I can't explain it. They explain what that symbol is and what the Lord of Night could have been. I'm pretty sure that symbol also shows up in a couple other places. But for what it's worth, it shows up in Celia as well, so I wouldn't necessarily attribute it directly to Mikola, because I feel like Mikola would have assimilated Ordina Liturgical Town into his domain. And so I'm a little bit skeptical about that claim. The Great Attractor is a region of gravitational attraction in the intergalactic space and the apparent central gravitational point of the Liurnia Kaea supercluster. Okay, that's a different thing. I understand what you're saying now. So yeah, I think the train of thought behind that would be, it was because of a galactic supermassive black hole, which is kind of driving all of that attraction to that point specifically. It's about as well understood as dark energy, so not very much at all. Okay, thank you guys. What's my build for the DLC? I haven't finalized it yet. I'm just kind of like playing it by ear. But at least for the purposes of this stream, I'm going to be doing some like assassin-y Confessor type stuff. So once I get further on in the playthrough, I'll use the White Shadow lure as my Ash of War, and I'll probably switch to a Twin Blade of some sort if I'm going to like rep the actual Confessor storyline, but I don't know if I really am that committed to it. So it's not a black hole, we don't know what it is, but it's rumored to be a supercluster of galaxies. Okay. And then Ash King says, this symbol is also on Radahn's armor, but only on the portrait in Volcano Manor. Are you talking about the statue that I was just looking at, or like the viney type thing that's in the crypt chairs?
Oh, well, it's been a long while.
Oh, God.
It's me, Patches the Untethered. I'm still in business, if you can believe it. Now I'm my only supplier, so I haven't got much. But everything here is top-notch. Patches Emporium, now open in Raya Lucaria.
Speaking of...
By the way, have you met that girl Raya? She's a strange one, but I believe she was in need of help. Not that it's any of my business, but if she rings your bell, why not lend her an ear? You're making your way to the Erdtree, no? Well, I heard something that might help. A special means of reaching your destination. Have you ever seen an Iron Virgin? The clunky contraptions are whirlwinds of sickles and spiked wheels. But long ago, they were endowed with a spell of transposition. And get this, a surviving virgin sits at the bottom of the big water wheel in the Academy of Raya Lucaria. Its transpositional powers fully intact. So right, if you get caught in it on purpose, it'll chuck you out straight at the base of the Erdtree. Or so I'm told.
It's the Patch's promise.
Oh yeah, great story, isn't it? I'll tell you as many times as you like. There's a surviving Iron Virgin at the bottom of the big water wheel in the Academy of Raya Lucaria. And I heard if you let yourself get caught in it, it'll chuck you out straight at the base of the Erdtree.
And Sir Y thinks Patches is always part of Volcano Manor. I don't think he's part of it yet, but he definitely seems to be on his way there. It would make sense to some degree to for him to murder Tarnished and sell their wares. But yeah, I don't know. I never really thought about whether or not he kind of always belonged to it. So we've already bought Margit Shackle. That's pretty much all we really need from Patches now. So I'm just going to leave him be.
Cheers for that.
Cheers for that. Okay. Yeah, and so the Lanikaya, or however you pronounce it, supercluster does look a lot like the Elden Beast. I don't remember if it was that galaxy structure specifically, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that before, yeah. You wonder if Patches will return in the DLC? If so, I imagine that it might be something similar to a Lapse situation in which he might not present himself the same way that he does in the base game, because Miyazaki had said that they wanted to make it so that way if players killed NPCs, the DLC quest wouldn't be all messed up, I guess. So let's go fight another Deathbird since it's night. tried rolling. I think I was stuck in my run animation. Uh-oh. Don't deathblight me, bro. I did that roll. That's annoying, unironically. I was trying to jump and attack. Dude, all of my inputs are just garbage right now. It's kind of annoying. That I panic rolled. That was totally me. I was hoping to posture break it rather than kill it. Enemy felled. For the red feathered branch sword. We already got the blue one, which actually they are very slightly different, and those differences are kind of important. So the blue one says, the heart sings when one draws close to death, and thus does one cling so tenaciously to life, to render up a death worth offering. And the red one says, the heart sings when one draws close to death, and a glorious end awaits those who cling so tenaciously to life. So, as I've said before in the previous streams, I think part of that is that when you cling to life and you get closer to death, your eyes might or your memories might flash before your eyes, or your life rather, and that might be important in making a death worth offering by like solidifying those memories, because it seems to be tied to gold and grace and remembrances. So there might be more to it, but we're just kind of waiting for that information. Iman thought the virgins would have been maidens who crafted boss weapons, and then when you approached one, you couldn't have been more wrong. Oh, rip. Yeah, I think I went to Caelid first and saw the abductor virgins there before I ever went to Rea Lucaria. So I'd seen them before that one. Do I think an assassin / confessor would use a greatsword? I think it's possible if they're Lord Sorn. And yeah, I'm just kind of waiting to get other items later on for now. Max Intensity 25, welcome on in. Will there be new starting classes? I don't think so, but that's kind of an interesting idea. That would actually be really cool though, especially if some of those early the starting classes, if they were new, would have the new weapon types to play with. And then Kyle says that would make the red invaders and blue protectors make sense too, because the red ones want blood and the blue want to protect. Let me look at that again. You might be onto something there. Let's double check. I'm not sure.
What are you looking at? You trying to start something, mate? What the hell is wrong with you? You trying to start something? Piss off before I crack you in half.
He'll crack us in half like a crab.
Ah, that necklace what you're after, is it? Well, show me what it's worth to you, and I'll consider parting ways with it. I'm not in love with it or nothing. Think you're bloody clever, do you? Then how about you piss off, for I'll crack you in half.
So you can also just straight up murk Blackguard, but that kind of ends his quest, so we won't do that this time.
This bloody swine. Decided to play ball now, have you? You'll be wanting the necklace then. You're a shrewd one, Chief. First, you hand me the runes. And don't try nothing, neither.
Hey, Humble Gamer and Vorb. Nice to have you in the stream. red Oni, blue Oni tropes, or like Aun type stuff. And then Mao was thinking that the primeval current might have something to do with the Great Attractor, because both are some unknowable great movement in the cosmos that causes fear. I think there's a little bit more to it rather than just like fear in general. So if anybody's somewhat familiar with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I kind of think the knowledge that either Azur or Lusat gained might be comparable to what happens to what should have happened to Zavad Beeblebrox, where they, one of the worst tortures in the known universe is to show somebody how insignificantly small they are by showing them the entire scope of the actual universe. So that's kind of what I think might have happened to the one who saw the death of the galaxy or whatnot. I don't know the difference between crab and prawn. I said he would crack us open like a crab. Anyway. He has both, doesn't he? Crab meat and prawn meat? So we have Raya's necklace stolen by a Blackguard. Necklace stolen from Raya by the Blackguard. Features a relief of a dignified-looking woman from a foreign country. It appears to hold great significance for Raya. So many people believe this to be Tanith. It would certainly go very well in line with Raya's reverence for Tanith, although obviously she's not masked here. She still seems to be wearing, is it the official's attire, or does she technically have the ruler? Anyway. So that's all we can buy for now, until...
All right. Take it. Thing's no damn use to anyone anyway. Your bloody idea, mate. Don't come crying to me later. Oh, piss off. What is it now? Oh, I see. You want some of me prawn? Freshly cooked it is. All right then. It's yours. If you can meet me price. I could be persuaded to sell you some other bits too. If you've got the runes.
Boiled prawn. So he doesn't have crab yet, I think. But anyway, even though I know you're being sarcastic, I still want to be right more than anything about Raya.
Oh. So you met the girl, did you? Alright, well, sod the particulars of the matter. But it ain't my fault she's stupid enough to get duped, is it? Anyway, she ain't alright, that one. Lucky she ain't died on the bloody roadside, I reckon.
So now we'll start the real debate in the chat. And hey, Jordo and Stella, nice to see you two again. Does he sell us crayfish, crawfish, crawdads, doodads, or what? Prawn? What do you call it?
You're tarnished too, ain't you? Can you see it then? The guidance of grace, I mean. I can't see it at all no more. Makes no bloody sense anyway. Why some no-name shithead like me should get called to the lands between. Cruel bloody joke, you ask me. Maybe something went tits up with it. Maybe it's been broke for a good long time. The Erdtree, I'm saying.
So yeah, that dialogue right there is pretty much what I used at the very beginning of my Return to Grace trailer contest video. So I'm really familiar with it. It almost sounds funny to me to hear it now when it's actually played at normal speed than the kind of a slowed down version that I used for my trailer. And speaking of which, apparently they're going to announce the trailer contest winners right before the DLC drops on the 20th. Oh yeah, and I guess this is big news. I forgot because it happened so early in the day. For anybody who is not aware, hold on, let me pull up the picture actually. I'll link it in chat. They've finally announced the official release times of Shadow of the Erdtree. So if you are a PC player, I've got really good news for you. You pretty much have an extra half day to check it out. But if you're not a PC player, I've got some bad news because the consoles are more or less region locked to release almost universally at midnight local time, depending on one's time zone, with very few exceptions. So PC players are essentially going to get as much as a 6-hour jump on console players, or 7 hours in some places. So get wrecked. I don't know. Stella thinks these look a little lobstery. Doggo Doggo's really only curious about the comedy winner. You know, I don't really think I saw too many like super comedic trailers now that you mention it. I saw like a couple, but I don't remember like anything super standing out in that regard. Don't remind you? Okay, sorry, global sequence, correct. Pony has to wait till 6 p.m. anyways. You're kind of screwed without burying your head. Yeah, because you have surgery, right? Or is that somebody else? Seems like we actually had a couple people in chat who had like some medical stuff going on. And Wet said, you heard we're getting an update on the 20th with balance changes, new hairstyles, etc. Okay. I remember seeing something about that, but I didn't look at it. I think I just heard other people complaining about it. Okay. So I think I bought a prawn, indeed. We talked to Blackguard.
Never met someone with a taste for prawn I couldn't trust. We'd make good mates, I reckon. I'll be seeing you.
So we get, the super important for the lore footage gathering spread out gesture.
Marika's tits. You must be hungry.
You can turn summoning pools on and off now? That's awesome, because I literally have no idea what they actually do.
Marika's tits.
Alright, so that's it with Blackguard. Didn't I pick something else up? Anyway, we do have the Dogeza on. So, for anybody who's like wondering how I got my footage without using mods for the trailer contest, I would do some like stuff like this. If you do the prone gesture and then just tilt the camera up enough, you disappear. So, if I was doing something like Blackguard, I would like face him, talk to him, spread out, all that. Actually, I don't think I could gesture, so I must have done the gesture when I wasn't needing in dialogue. But you could also talk to NPCs by pressing the interact button and then immediately pulling out the telescope. It's pretty rough, at least for console. Maybe because this has like more FPS, somebody was saying. Or not FPS, but something along those lines.
Marika's tits.
Alright, I failed. I'm not going to worry about it. So it's raining real bad in Liurnia, so I'm just going to teleport to Raya. And so it took me a really long time to notice that these things are where the map markers are going to be. Oh, Pony's for you that day, but your time zone doesn't release till 6 p.m. Okay. Ponyboy said that was correct. You're going to have surgery, but they actually called and your insurance won't cover it, so you have to get it done while you're awake, which means it had to be rescheduled. That sucks, man. It's so annoying. Alright, real talk. I don't like to talk about like politics and stuff on the channel, but I just absolutely hate insurance companies. And the main reason for that is because they just serve as a middleman to get in the way of people's money, like going to the services that they need. So I'd rather things just kind of worked a bit better systemically, and if people wanted privatized healthcare, then they would be able to pay for it if they want to. It's a little bit of a hot take if you're in the US, but it's pretty cold in other parts of the world.
The thug should be resting at an abandoned home down the way. Please, I must have the necklace back. The thug, please. Oh yes. That is my missing necklace. Thank you kindly. I am in your debt. Did I forget to announce myself? I am Raya, in the service of Lady Tanith of the Volcano Manor. I seek stalwart Tarnished, who might join our house. You are very brave yourself. Not only a steady hand, but a steady heart. Merciless, even to your own kind. Such strength is precisely what my mistress seeks. Please, take this.
Volcano Manor invitation.
Brave Tarnished. Seek the Altus Plateau, the realm of the Erdtree. Most Tarnished are doomed to wander the outskirts of the lands between, peering wistfully at the towering Erdtree. But you are no ordinary tarnished. And once that is proven, the Volcano Manor will fully extend its invitation to fight amongst a family of champions. Oh, and one more thing, only for you. This land of Liurnia is connected to the Altus Plateau by the Grand Lift of Dectus, beyond the high road. But the lift has been defunct for an age, meaning there's no simple means of passage. Instead, you must seek the old ruins in the cliff. At the base of the valley, near the Grand Lift, there's an old tunnel. It was excavated from both ends, linking Liurnia to the Altus Plateau. I have faith in you. A champion through and through. I do hope that we can meet again. Seek the old ruins in the cliff. At the base of the valley, near the Grand Lift, there's an old tunnel. It was excavated from both ends, linking Liurnia to the Altus Plateau. I have faith in you. A champion. Through and through. I do hope that we can meet again.
Alright, so real talk, I don't know whether or not I actually want to kill Radahn or Mohg on this playthrough. I'm wondering whether or not it would be more beneficial to kind of leave them alive to see if there's any, like, quest triggers associated with them. And Melina as well, so I might just, like, get up to the fire giant and then, like, go down to the Halig tree, get, like, the spawn before Millennia. Maybe I'd just kill, like, Rykard and Renala then. I don't know. I haven't really thought this through now that I think about it. So let's go ahead and read the Volcano Manor thing, and then I will rant a bit more about health insurance. A little bit. Not like a ton. Wait. Didn't she give us an invitation? Why is it not over here? Am I just blind? Okay. Letter given by Raya as thanks for retrieving her necklace. Contains an invitation to Volcano Manor. Quote, Brave Tarnished, seek the Altus Plateau in the realm of the Erdtree. Prove yourself by making this journey, and the Volcano Manor will fully extend its invitation to fight amongst a family of champions. Alright, so if you look at the icon of the Volcano Manor invitation, you can kind of see the stake / Rykard symbol in the very middle. It's really hard to tell unless you have like the icon files downloaded or something that you can more directly compare it with, which I don't really have right now. So rip the dream for that specifically. So I guess really much like the next point would be to start accessing Rea Lucaria and heading over to Caria Manor. So let's go ahead and do that for once. Pretty much going to be one of the only times I actually use this. I don't even see the beam. Okay, there it is. Hey, Phantom Leaves. Nice to see you again. Raya's info dumping for real. Jordo, what's my favorite ending? It would be the Frenzied Flame one, but that's mostly because I just dislike the other ones more than actually liking the Frenzied Flame one. And then Stella was saying, in their experience, people who work at insurance companies hate insurance companies. True and real. My grandmother worked at an insurance company, well, a couple over, the years. And she wasn't a fan of them either. I mean, work is work, so I don't really blame her, but she didn't actually seem to hate insurance like I do. But anyway, who else said it? Natural Phenomenon. I don't remember if I welcomed you in, but nice to have you. You said insurance is a good thing, sort of, but it does have conflicting interests with their clients. And for me, it's that conflict of interest which really makes it a bad thing, because it takes what could be a good system and it turns it into something a bit more predatory, which I think is just bad. And I think there should be a system of insurance in place to an extent, But I tend to look at things like healthcare as almost like a utility, and it's just better for the economy and the greater good if people got patched up when they were ill or injured. And I also wish we had a lot more robust laws to protect people from like taking off work if they're sick. Because boy howdy do I like, you know, restaurant workers being forced to come in sick because they feel like they're going to get fired if they don't, and handling all of my food and everyone else's. Yeah. So I actually missed the Side of Grace on my first playthrough. I was like, what is this? I do wish that there was a Side of Grace by the Rose Church, though, rather than having to, like, go all the way out of the way. Oh, yeah, I guess I need to go back to the Roundtable Hold and talk to Nefeli as well, because I didn't do that after the Godrick fight. So I'm going to skip Vi for now. I'm just going to go to the minor Erdtree, get the Side of Grace. Then I'll probably head back to the Albinauric, get that Side of Grace, and then I'll talk to Nefeli, and then work my way northward. Mao's sick and home alone right now because your sister's passing the night in the hospital because she's more sick than you? Dude, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully everything, you know, works out. Sucks, man. Yeah, it should be more tightly regulated. Well, I mean, there's the rub right there. It's like, in many ways, regulation is bad because people follow the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law. And things get exploited or aren't robust enough to meet, like, fringe cases. So, I don't know. It's complicated. I don't really envy any politicians and whatnot who are trying to make all that stuff work. So, here we go. Erudition Guide Thee. So I believe, is this... I don't have the map for it. So the other one would be over by EG, isn't it? Kind of, like along the way. I guess I don't see it on this map. What was I going to say about that? I think this is a converted fringe tower. I think there's 2 of these total in Liurnia. One down to the southwest where I am, and then another at the very northeast above the Black Knife Catacomb and the Frenzy Flame Village, like the real Frenzy Flame Village. My grandma's experience tracks, yeah. Fellow insurance company lovers, your people make chaos take the world. I mean, you guys would be surprised at like how many people will defend like the insurance system. Interestingly enough, they don't seem to be working in insurance unless they're like an exec, like Stella was saying. Like, I think probably one of my favorite quotes about insurance companies is that people love their insurance until they have to use it. Which is about as big of a true and real as I've ever heard and will ever hear. Oh man, I think I screwed up. I probably don't want to come here yet. Change of plans. We're going to go to Roundtable Hold first. I think I said I was going to do that, and then I got distracted by my hatred of insurance companies. Oh, yeah, and we'll need to see Dialos and Lanya. I guess there is a lot more in Liurnia than I give it credit for. It just feels so... Fudge. Oh, no, she's here. Sweet. It feels so spread out that it's hard to appreciate. Damn, there's a lot of stuff to cover. Okay, so we've got Nefeli, Gideon, Dialos, Nefeli... Anyway.
You again. I thought you'd receive a summons to the round table. Nefeli Lu. We met at Stormvale. I'm glad to see you here. I have something for you. I found it in Godrick's grafting grounds. You were the one to defeat him, I would hazard. Make good use of it. I don't intend to make a habit of scavenging corpses.
Arsenal Charm. Oh, I think I remembered what I originally intended to do. So I think I originally intended to go to Caria Manor and talk to Celavis and get the potion and offer it to Nepheli here, because at this point she's prideful enough and hasn't experienced enough tragedy that she would refuse the potion if we were to try to give it to her.
Ah, yes. I wonder if you've met my foster father. He's in his study. The room Encher's guarding just over there. If you haven't already, I advise you introduce yourself. Father is leader of the Roundtable. I'm sure talking to him will be worth your while. It's about time I headed off. I'll see you again, warrior, should the fates deign it.
Alright, so this is why I say we shouldn't trust NPCs, because Gideon is not in here. Nepheli is a bald-faced liar, even if she might have a head of hair. Maybe she doesn't have hair under there. Nah, I'm kidding around, obviously. But it is kind of funny that she says something like that when it is certainly not the case right now. Oh, no, wait, no, Gideon is actually in there. I forget that his study closes until you talk to the Two Fingers. This kind of tripped me up on one of my New Game Plus cycles. I thought I accidentally soft-locked my game because I couldn't talk to Gideon for something. Or maybe I couldn't access these doors. Right. I think I know what it was. I don't remember, actually. I think I got the grace of the Two Fingers, but I didn't talk to Gideon the first time to have these doors open. And then I don't remember, but I thought I couldn't proceed, but I figured it out eventually. That Gideon and Ania and the Two Fingers dialogue are tied. And then there's some other quip that I was going to make about insurance. Oh, okay, I remember. This wasn't exactly a quip, but somebody had said, wasn't Pony. And hello, Clown Scum. Nice to see you again. D&D Hydrate. Welcome back to the stream. Who just said it? Oh yeah, Ponyboy said their biggest gripe, honestly, is that there's no parsing your insurance policy without a lawyer. LOL, they could suffer the system if they had security knowing what it specifically covered. So the thing that pisses me off probably the most about insurance, and I might be wrong about this because there's a lot to be pissed off about, is that if people get something like cancer, the insurance companies will look over all of the contracts to make sure that somebody has literally dotted all of their I's and J's and crossed all their T's and X's to make sure that their policy is on the up and up. And if somebody did forget to dot an I or a J, they can cancel the policy at any time. And it's like, what the hell? You've been taking their money all this time and you're really going to do this as though they weren't your client? It's so scummy. It's sickening. Anyway, that is it for insurance, because I feel like I've said all that I could without just getting more heated. Oh, D&D Hydrate just brings up another one. They ended up dropping out of the insurance company after paying off the mortgage. They ignored and kept finding ways to deny their claims for years, so yeah, gave them money for pretty much nothing. Yeah, and see, they don't return that money, do they? God, it's so frustrating. Mao asks, is Nepheli Lu the direct daughter of Horlu or just a descendant? That's a very good question. I feel like many people have differing thoughts about it. It's definitely annoying because she doesn't exactly seem to be a daughter of Marika. She seems to be tarnished like us, like Horlu. And we're told that Horlu left with, I don't remember what they call him in English, but the Japanese is more like the people who are the same as him, essentially, like the same tribe, his kinsmen. But it doesn't necessarily need to be kinsmen in the sense of like blood relation, I guess. So I feel like she's probably more of a distant relation if people like, what's his face? Kenneth Haidt didn't necessarily know about her to begin with. Like, why was she allowed to roam the lands between as she was? So yeah, that's just kind of like my thought about that. Have we talked about Crunchy's Melina is America the Glowmaid Queen video yet? A little bit here and there, but not like a ton directly. Chadwick says you don't make the big bucks writing checks. Yeah, I mean, I would like to talk about insurance a lot more, but I feel like a stream about Elden Ring isn't the best place for it, especially since it's not going to be particularly fruitful or conductive, and it'll probably just like bring down the mood. Actually, I don't really mind getting a rise out of myself for like actually righteous anger, but it's just like misdirected in an Elden Ring stream. And then Mao says the hero's class description says that they are descendants of the chieftain of the Badlands. So descendants doesn't necessarily mean direct descendants. It can, but I feel like Nepheli is a bit more removed. All right. So now we're going to have a ton of dialogue to parse through with Enya and the Two Fingers.
Are you that new tarnished? You've done well. I am Enya the Finger Reader. I interpret the words of the fingers, envoys to the greater will. Look there. The fingers tremble to welcome you, Shardbearer. Let their wisdom wash over you.
Great Elden Ring, root of the Golden Order, anchor of all lands, giver of grace, wellspring of all joy. Until it was shattered, the tragic corruption of the Order has taken its toll. Across the realm, life lies in ruin, fallen to pieces. Foul curses and misery spread, unabating. But the greater will has not abandoned the realm, nor the life that inhabits it. So it is that the tarnished are guided by grace, called to act. Brave tarnished, your great rune is a handsome shard of the Elden Ring. Seek another of its kind to become Elden Lord and restore the Golden Order.
Let the words of the fingers guide you.
So Real Zestman on the Discord server had brought up a question earlier in the chat, the Discord chat that is. I forgot to link the Discord. In that, at the very beginning of the game, Melina says having a tarnished to become Elden Lord would essentially violate the Golden Order. And this, what Melina says there, seems to contradict what Enya tells us from the Two Fingers, that we need to become Elden Lord and restore the Golden Order. But Melina says becoming Elden Lord would violate the Golden Order. So which is it? So anyway, let me plug the Discord if anybody wants to hop in there who's not in there. And yeah, I think it's a really fascinating question. As I mentioned earlier in the stream, we're told from Thops that he was already in the Lands Between when Rea Lucaria decided to close itself off after the Shattering. So it does cast doubt on the timeline of when the Tarnished were brought back to the Lands Between. Although maybe Thops could have been one of the ones who wasn't exiled. But we just don't really know that. At least Selen's second body is tarnished as well. But there's also Jaren, who should have been tarnished and also kind of part of the Shattering from the very beginning, presumably, if he had like a death pact with Radahn. Definitely part of the Shattering before it became a total stalemate, at the very least. So maybe the Greater Will had already abandoned the demigods. When did the Greater Will allegedly abandon all the demigods and rely on the Tarnished? We don't really know, so between this and I think it's Gideon's armor set, which says that Gideon recognized that the Two Fingers were bent and broken long ago, does lead into a lot of reasons to strongly doubt the claims that Enya tells us about the Two Fingers, as well as a lot of the other Finger Reader crones, to be honest. So it's hard trying to make those claims at times, because despite all that, we really do get a lot of good information about the state of the world from characters like this. So it feels a little bit bittersweet trying to pick and choose what lines to trust versus which ones to doubt, I guess. But that's just kind of part of the fun of delving into lore and, like, you know, kind of lawyering, really, where you're just trying to see what the facts are within the system that you're working from and try to build your case based off of what you can glean from it, I suppose. And then Thor, nice to see you again. Where do I think Gideon learned Black Flame protection from? Could there be any connection to EG being covered in Black Flame when found dead? Maybe he tried defending against the Black Knives. So I trying to remember which video said this first, where I first heard it. It might have been Honored Madman. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't think it was Garrulous Goldmask. There was somebody else who pointed out on one of their videos that it seems as though Gideon learns that Black Flame incantation after communing with the Will of America, which is very, very fascinating. I don't know if that fully works out. I haven't double checked myself. So setting that stuff aside, I don't really know where Gideon would have learned it from. It could have been something that he learned like longer before he met us, although that's something that Gideon doesn't always use, right? So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. And then Phantom asks, do we think the fingers are actually communicating with the Greater Will, or are they just replaying old voicemails? It might be a little bit of replaying old voicemail as well as a game of telephone with the added incentive of... Okay, so I think I've made this analogy before on streams way in the past, in that if, let's say that you and your older brother or older sister, older sibling are home alone and you're like, you know, 8 years old, and let's say that they're 12 years old, and your mom leaves you, your older sibling, in charge, and they call you to see like how everything is going, but your older sibling takes control of the phone and is like, okay, Mom said we need to do our chores by 8 o'clock. Also, she wants you to do my chores as well. So maybe that's a little bit too on the nose, but it's like, if our access to the Greater Will is contingent entirely upon the two fingers, how do we know whether the two fingers are acting in good faith, or even if they're interpreting the will of the Greater Will accurately to begin with? We don't. So there's a lot of reason to doubt what they say, even without all of this extra information, which directly casts doubt on what they say in things like Gideon's armor set, and like what Vare will talk about, the two fingers being broken and holding no love for our kind, all those things. So with all that being said, I think it would be really funny if the two fingers have been relaying everything to us straight and perfectly, and all of this doubt is just wasted hot air. So I don't know, it'd just be kind of funny in the grand scheme of things. Why isn't his posture so good compared to the other finger readers? Your guess is as good as mine on that one. Hey, Core, nice to see you. So many blind people in the lands between. Indeed. Ponyboy thinks Gideon learned it from one of the Godskin bosses, the duo in Fair Missoula. But it does sort of break from the idea that we're informing him, huh? I would need to double check when and how he learns the protection of the Black Flame or whatnot. Enter Y says, the two fingers speak light speed, yet it takes them forever to contact the Greater Will. The Greater Will must be very far away. Well, to be fair, like, even in the cosmic scale of things, like, isn't it that the next closest galaxy to us is 2 or 4 light years away? So if the Greater Will is kind of like beyond the stars, essentially, I could totally understand why it would take, you know, hundreds or thousands of moons before the two fingers came into contact, even if they were speaking at the speed of light. Although it's kind of interesting to point out that they probably might be speaking light speed. I'll need to think about that a bit more. And then Ponyboy says, even if the two fingers are good faith actors, they have to be acting on faith alone based on how long the correspondence clearly takes. Maybe. Okay, it's the closest star, not closest galaxy. Okay, thank you so much. Speed of gold. Oh no. The galaxy that we live in is 150,000 light years across. Okay. My astronomy facts are not the best, guys, as I've like demonstrated multiple times on tonight's stream.
Well, I see. A remembrance of gold has found its way into your possession. Demigods and even the creator of the champions are hewn by the Erdtree upon their end into remembrances. They are valuable indeed. These remembrances yet house the power of their former masters. And should you wish to wield that same power, well, I will lend you the strength of the fingers. Do not recoil from my offer. The fingers guide us all. And you, Tarnished, you are here to take, are you not?
Alright, so I really like this dialogue from Ania because this is one of the very few times where we get any direct commentary on the Tarnished reaction to anything an NPC says ever, which is kind of remarkable. So if this kind of power that the Finger Maidens are using, or Finger Reader Crones are using, is enough to make us recoil, I think that's a pretty big red flag or smoke signal or whatever you want to call it. Because we're just going out and murdering things all day. Like, what the hell does it take to make a murderer be like, oh man, that's kind of messed up, you know? So, Ania saying that we're taking the remembrances of others and like transforming them into new weapons is probably really significant, is the big thing to stress. So let's go ahead and click receive power from remembrance. I must have tutorials turned off. Whoopsies. So that explained the no help text. Damn it. I know the 1.0 stuff says something a little bit more directly, but talking back about Ania's dialogue, she says here that they're hewn by the Erdtree into remembrances. This might be a little bit of the ambiguity in the Japanese, where the ni particle can be understood as by or to. So I think it's more accurate that the champions who get defeated are hewn into the Erdtree as remembrances rather than hewn by the Erdtree into remembrances. So I think there's a couple items which make it a little bit clearer as well in the English. Okay, yeah, here it is. Remembrance of Godrick the Grafted hewn into the Erdtree. So the Japanese text is kind of identical between what Ania says and this line of dialogue right here at the very top, or description at the very top. Anyway, the power of its namesake can be unlocked by the Finger Reader. Alternatively, it can be used to gain a great bounty of runes. A feeble man once sought power through the grotesque act of grafting. Quote, one day we'll return together to our home, bathed in rays of gold. So some people were asking the other night about the Tower of Return ghost and whether or not being bathed in rays of gold was a reference to Leyndell or somewhere else. But I think it's because of this remembrance that I'm pretty confident that returning home bathed in rays of gold should be a reference to Leyndell, because Godrick was exiled from Leyndell essentially. Like, he failed his attack on the first defense of Leyndell and got he had to turn tail and flee back down to Stormvale. So it just makes the most sense to me that that's how those things would tie together. Corn has always wondered what came of the one title of champion. Could you oh wait, sorry, I can't read. What earns one the title of champion? Yeah, I guess I don't really know now that you mention it. Enter Y says, why couldn't he go back to Leyndell? He attacked Leyndell. So if you look at the beginning, I guess that's not the beginning trailer. If you look at the story trailer for Elden Ring, when all of the trolls and whatnot are besieging Leyndell itself, all of those soldiers are wearing Godrick's surcoat armor set and whatnot. Although, to be fair, on that trailer specifically, the armor palettes are mirrored. So left and right is turned around. huged into the Erdtree. I might have misspoken, but yeah. And then Mao says, maybe the finger reader is not that attached to the Golden Order because she herself suggests to burn the Erdtree, so this can explain the conflict with what Melena's dialogue is. So, I tend to believe that Destined Death was probably removed later, and that one consequence of that would be that I do think that the finger reader crones would have predated that time period. And I don't know if the finger reader crones are made kind of pseudo-immortal by consuming the tears or the sap of the Erdtree, and then they're like later kept immortal with the Golden Order. But the fact that they were supposed to live lives eternal, yeah, we have a lot of dead ones in Lane Dell, is interesting to me. And as I said before, it's a good possibility that that one rando Black Knife assassin outside of America's bedchamber could have killed all those finger reader crones up there as well, but I don't know. And Chadwick theorizes that being named by a higher authority to do battle in their name deems one as champion. It's an elevated position, but you don't know that it guarantees a win. So I could see that to be a champion, you need to be elevated by something else, whether that be an outer god or a noble, maybe? I don't know. At least Muriel throws a little bit of shade on the concept of champions, because he's like, Radagon is just some champion. He's not even like anybody important. Why did America marry him? Champion amongst challengers or champion of a cause? Okay. Buster says, the ghost by the Tower of Return says showered in wraiths of gold. Is it showered? I thought it was bathed. I mean, it's essentially the same idea. Okay, that's what I thought. Mr. Kai, nice to see you again. The fingers are not linked to the Erdtree and also not linked to the Golden Order. Corrin calls the finger scroll not a work of the Erdtree, but he accepts the Golden Order Principia. So, yeah, it's kind of funny that our boy Corrin does say that those incantations derive no lineage from the Erdtree. But even if so, I don't know if it'd be fair to say that they're not related to the Erdtree or not linked to it, because I think the two fingers would have predated the Erdtree. So I don't think like what Corrin says is totally off base, but it is kind of interesting because the confessors and whatnot do explicitly follow the two fingers and guidance and all that. So yeah. Enter Y says, you still don't know what it means. Quote, Radagon arrived at the head of Golden Host. So Golden Host is just kind of an odd flowery way of saying that he headed or speared the forces of the Golden Army. Chadwick says Raz was in the Vanguard. Okay. And Jigalag, nice to see you again. Alright. So that was this remembrance of Godrick. Let's go ahead and check out the Axe of Godrick. Great axe wielded by Godrick the Grafted. This golden battle axe is emblazoned with the figure of a beast representing the strength of Godfrey, first Elden Lord and patriarch of the golden lineage. Quote, I command thee kneel, for I am the lord of all that is golden. And that's pretty much that with this description. And yeah, if you do look at the axe, it does have what is most likely meant to be Sirash emblazoned on the blade. Grafted Dragon. The embodiment of the power that still remained in the dragon's head that was grafted to Godrick's left arm. The wielder's arm will take the form of a small dragon, sprouting sharp dragon fangs at the fist. This weapon cannot be two-handed. Skill, bear witness! Alright. So it's kind of funny that the grafted dragon really doesn't look anything like the dragon that we see Godrick use in his fight. And nonetheless, maybe we could describe it as being some shenanigans of being a recreation of remembrances rather than whatever Godrick does with the real dragon head in his boss fight. And Deadma, nice to see you again. What's my favorite description or the ones that I remember the most? I have two favorite descriptions. One would be soap, and the other would be gold-tinged excrement, aka golden poop. Soap says filth covering the exterior eventually seeps in, soiling one's very spirit. Something like that. And then Gold Poop says that gold-tinged excrement never loses its customary scent or warmth. For better or worse, it remains as it is. Thanks, Meow Laser. Nice to see you again. And the Amos, welcome back to the stream. Stella says, host is such a good word for an army. I don't think it's a bad word. It's just apparently a little bit confusing for some people. Do I think his rune gave him grafting powers? I don't know, because if so, that doesn't make a lot of sense for Godfrey to also be able to graft. And I mean, we could talk a lot about Crunchy's video about Godfrey the grafted on that topic specifically, but beyond that, I don't know if grafting is similar to what happens with Gowry and the Rot Pests, or even Hayata and Arena, or Shibiri and Yura. Thematically, they might be the same, but I don't know if they would like all be grafting. But good question.
Now go forth. Let the words of the fingers guide you.
Man, I was gonna stream longer tonight, but I am feeling it already. Maybe it's because there's just like dialogue stuff. So we get the Rapture emote from the two fingers, which is kind of funny because you're like holding two arms up, which are kind of reminiscent of the posture of the two fingers, but not really. And what else? Nefeli, Albinauric Village. We already screwed up the Celavis stuff by talking to her here. Oh, Gideon. Yeah, the door just opened. Damn it. Hopefully I don't fall asleep while he monologues. I might just not talk to all of his stuff to keep more action going.
You've received the wisdom of the two fingers, have you not? Then, just as promised, I bid you welcome. As a true member of the Round Table, I am known as Gideon Ofnir. As a tarnished who wishes to stand before the Elden Ring and become Elden Lord, I am accumulating knowledge. To be all-knowing. You now belong to a select group of fellows. As such, I ask that you remain constant. You'll be after more great runes now, eh? Then as your fellow, allow me to divulge a little knowledge. The inheritors of the great runes, the shard bearers. We of the Round Table know the location of 5 of them, including the one you defeated. Godrick the Grafted, Lord of Stormvale. General Radahn, who fought Melania and her rot to a standstill in the Caelid Wilds. Praetor Rykard, Lord of the Volcano Manor of Mount Gelmir. Morgoth the Grace-Given, Veiled Monarch and Lord of Leyndell. And Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, ruler of Rhea Lucaria's Academy. You'll still be after more great runes, won't you?
Veiled Monarch. Oh, snaps. Hold on. Let me look that up. Wait, what the hell? Sagatanaki. Formless Lord? Okay. So this is probably just like more metaphorical talk than an actual veil. I was like, holy shit. Veiled Monarch, just like the Shadowlands are veiled, where we see omen-like things. Connection? I mean, there still might be that kind of connection, but it isn't quite as direct, I suppose, as the Japanese is concerned. Formless Morgoth is the doll confirmed? No, he's Uden. Yeah. So, I guess I should give you guys a little bit more context. So, Sugata can literally be understood as like not having form, because the first character, Sugata, means form, and Naki comes from Nai. It's like a present conjugation participle. So, Nai, so no form Morgoth, but Sugatanaki is also another way of saying like somebody who's disappeared or like you haven't seen them. So he's just saying like nobody has really seen Morgott, I guess. So let's learn about Nefeli first, and then Morgott, and then the rest of the ones.
I understand you've been speaking to Nefeli. She's my daughter. I took her in when she lost the guidance of grace. Though a mere axe-wielding barbarian, her youthful credulity suited my purposes. So I put her to work. Do not hesitate to employ her. Should her services benefit you, despite her looks, she is more than capable in the press of battle.
I don't remember if his dialogue changes if you actually summon her for the fights. Anyway, it's not terribly important. And then that reminded me, somebody else in the chat earlier today had like made a comment about wanting to use an axe for their build. Or no, not axe, they wanted to use storm stuff. And that reminded me I should have checked out what's it called? The Highland axe that I picked up next to the portrait of Godfrey in Stormvale. And I've been forgetting to do that. So I'll try to do that. No, I'm going to do that now before I forget. Since we just talked about Nefeli. It's probably faster. Oh, this doesn't really matter. Single-sided axe used by the warriors of the Highlands. Brave combatants begin battle by crying out their names. Roars are enhanced by this weapon. I'm just, for some reason, rather than Horaloo saying his name, just warrior just pops in my head. Okay. Roars are enhanced by that weapon. Interesting war cry. Makes sense. Okay. Enterwythe says they think Veiled Monarch was part of the cut questline. The stuff with Kenneth Shaneheit? Yeah, probably. Korn says the same word as Formless Mother. I believe so. Let me double check for you, though. Yes. But also, to be fair, that's also what they call the quote-unquote unseen assassins of the Black Knives. So that's why I was trying to establish that Sugatanaki is a little bit disambiguated from, like, literally being formless. And it's also in Ghost Glovewort. Hold on, I'm a little bit blind. Right, yeah. Serpent bow? Oh, used by assassins known as the Formless Serpents. Makes sense. Okay. Let's go hear what Gideon has to say about the quote-unquote Formless Monarch.
Well, what is it now? Morgott the Grace-Given is Lord of Leyndell, the capital city. It lies at the foot of the Erdtree, in the east of the Altus Plateau. But the Two Fingers forbid us from venturing there, until we've acquired enough great runes to repair the Elden Ring. Set your sights elsewhere for the time being. The Veiled Monarch can wait.
How messed up is it that we could mend the Elden Ring with only 2 rune shards? Don't know what else to say about that.
So, Godrick the Grafted, Lord of Stormvale. Despite being the blood of Godfrey, first Elden Lord, he's a grotesque old fool grasping for power. His castle lies upon the cliff to Limgrave's northwest, but I suspect you know that well enough already.
So the implication of his final line is that we killed Godrick. I do wish that the lines changed a little bit depending on the order in which we defeated the demigods. Because there's been a couple playthroughs where I've beaten Radahn first, but Gideon's dialogue doesn't change at all, which is a little bit disappointing.
General Radahn, the famed Red Lion and Scourge of the Stars, is a ferocious warrior. He fought Malenia and her rot to a standstill in the Caelid Wilds to Limgrave's east. And now Caelid has been engulfed by the Scarlet Rot. Even approaching the region is no mean feat. I've heard survivors of Radahn's army are still in the wilds, staving off the rot with fire. And if it's true, I suspect Radahn is still there as well, in Caelid. Though, I doubt he much resembles his former self anymore.
That is pretty straightforward, although this might set up that Gideon himself has not really stepped foot in Caelid. So if he did fight and defeat his own demigods, it seems as though Radahn may not have been one of them.
Praetor Rykard is the lord of the Volcano Manor on Mount Gelmir. He is a ruthless justiciar who commands a company of inquisitors, reviled for his serpentine demeanor. The volcano, Mount Gelmir, lies in the west of the Altus Plateau, the realm of the Erdtree. It was the stage of the most appalling battle in the entirety of the Shattering. Rykard has committed the grave sin of blasphemy, marking himself as an enemy never to be forgiven.
It's interesting that blasphemy is like the grave sin, especially because he's essentially taking on the old ways of the gods to become a serpent god thing himself. Anyway, setting that aside, Dylan, nice to see you again. You had a really good question of, quote, Morgoth the Grace Given. What does that mean? Is Morgoth the only demigod who explicitly has grace? I think you're half right, but I would refine that in saying that Morgoth might be the only demigod that was explicitly given grace. So I think the reason why he would have been given grace is that the Omen are born graceless. We are told that in one of the Omen Baron descriptions. I think it's the base one. If not, it's the Regal Omen Baron. But anyway, Omen are graceless by design. Maybe not by design, just as much as Albinaurics are said to be without grace. Although I guess there's a bit of ambiguity with the it is said stuff with the Albinaurics. So it's been very strange to me why Omen in particular are considered graceless. I've wondered whether or not it's because they're cursed and those curses like make them cursed to not return to the Erdtree, so that's why like grace doesn't really matter for them because they wouldn't return to the Erdtree to begin with anyway. But I don't know. Compared to Mohg, who doesn't use any of the gold attacks, we can see Morgoth transform commoners or like nothing at all into versions of his body. Many people believe that the gold free that we fight in the Erdtree Sanctuary could have been a manifestation of the grace conjured up by Morgoth. I really like that as an idea. I think it makes a ton of sense. But if it doesn't, then like where the hell does gold free come from? We don't know. That's like one of the harder questions to answer if you don't believe that gold free is Morgoth's grace specifically. Maybe it's literally just a memory of gold free being activated by the Erdtree. I could see how that would work because we kind of need to fight Radagon to enter the Erdtree, so maybe fighting Godfrey as well could be a process of doing that, but it just gets corrupted later on by the Thorns of Radagon. I don't know, hopefully that makes a bit of sense to you guys. And then, yeah, talking about the NPCs not having updated quest lines, Galamoth was saying they beat Mohg and Gideon still talks about having no idea where Mikola is. Yeah, pretty funny stuff. Florgeboard says, you are aware of the definition of blasphemy, right? It's by default the gravest sin. So this is where I would disagree with a caveat in that it depends on your belief system to begin with. So certainly blasphemy is really bad, but I mean, arguably other forms of transgressions could be considered worse than blaspheming, but that's really neither here nor there in the grand scheme of things. Part of the reason why I think it's funnier than the context of Elden Ring is that America kind of explicitly tells the children to ignore like what the hell's going on with this current order and to make their own. So if you're going to make your own order, like what does blaspheming really matter in the grand scheme of things? Dylan says that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Glad to hear that. And then, yeah, Forge asks, what if Godfrey is simply a manifestation of Godfrey's removed grace? So this kind of ties into one of my ideas about Morgoth, is that he may have been given Godfrey's grace. So I think that would kind of align with what you're offering right there as well. Mr. Jigalag says, you also wonder if grace equals fate, then the Golden Order doesn't have plans for the Omens, but Morgoth was able to claim himself fate, or otherwise the Golden Order had plans for him. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the other things of why I'm really curious as to whether or not the Golden Order relates to destined death and fate in general, and it would make a lot of sense to me for the Golden Order to have come into being later in the timeline for these kind of disparate reasons. Okay, Flitchborg is just saying that blasphemy is occasionally used to just say the worst sin and not just betraying your deity. Maybe that's a fair point to make. And Adlai Black, welcome into the stream. You don't think that's the implication in Elden Ring? More like rebellion to authorities? I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, Godfrey says a crown is warranted with strength. And Phantom Leaf says that tracks very well. Sweet. And then Galamoth brings up a really good question in that, is blasphemy a specific transgression or just any offense to God? I think that's a very fair question because if there is a kind of divine decree, any kind of action which goes against it could arguably be seen as blasphemy. And or blasphemy could just be a kind of repudiation or challenging of the gods, or disregarding the gods and their decrees, which is kind of what you're saying right there. So maybe it's a little bit arguable. I should probably look into the semantics of this, because I'm not super familiar with the concepts of well, maybe I should say the deep concepts of blasphemy as it works in English, let alone Japanese. So I could tell you the characters Taizai would be a grave sin, but what does that actually mean? I don't really know, you know? Yeah. Stella says blasphemy will get you in trouble. Heresy will pretty much get you killed. Yeah, I guess I don't really know too much of a difference between blasphemy and heresy. I feel like this is one of those square rectangles or Venn diagram type things. And so, yeah, building off the whole blasphemy stuff, for what it's worth, we are told that the nomadic merchants were buried deep underground in Leyndell for that crime of blasphemy, which may have been conducted by Shabriri. So you might be right about that stuff. I would need to think about it a bit more. Yeah, and as Korn says, for Judeo-Christian theology, blasphemy is speaking out against God. That's kind of what I thought, but there might be more to it that I'm just unaware of. Although you said you had a doctorate in that as well, so if you say it, I'm definitely more inclined to believe it for at least, that belief system. And then Stella will link something in the Discord. Sweet, thank you. And then Chadwick says, when you say God damn it, it's blasphemy because it's demanding something of God, not necessarily that it offends God's sensibilities. I feel like there's a bit of nuance there, but I'm a little bit too tired to really gather my thoughts to address it properly. Hey, I'm on screen in game. No, you, Elden, and nice to see you again. You're here pretty late for yourself, aren't you? All right, Korn says, correct, you're trying to simplify things, of course. Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that, especially within the constraints of the YouTube chat. And then Forgeboard says, oh man, I love this stuff. For instance, in Dante's Inferno, the worst sin to him was treachery, the absolute betrayal of trust. But to others, it might be corruption, abuse of power, or heresy going against religious rules. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the difference is between heresy and blasphemy. Well, hold on. I guess heresy isn't necessarily a direct repudiation of the belief system as much as it is just not being part of the order versus something else, I guess. Versus saying I refuse this belief structure. So yeah, going back to Dante's Inferno, I don't know how fair it is to bring that up as a source because that's like one of the most well-known fan fictions of the Bible, and it's not actually, you know, the real story, so to speak. Kind of the same as like Paradise Lost, but I get what you mean though. And then Adlai Black says, blasphemy is insulting a deity or talking disrespectfully about such deities. Did Rykard talk badly about America and the other two demigods? I feel like he may have done that, but he probably also took it a step further by renouncing that form of deification and wanted to create a new order. But I don't really see how that's too substantially different than what Ronnie might be trying to implement. And is consuming them really that bad? I don't know. Alright, so I'm just gonna go continue with the dialogue for now, unless we get some really spicy comments in the chat. But yeah, I definitely love all the feedback that you guys are bringing in to the stream right now.
The Academy of Rea Lucaria lies to Limgrave's north, towering over the mist-laden lands of Liurnia. Renala is queen of the Carian royals, who govern the Academy. But Renala herself is no demigod. Her beloved Radagon left her to become Queen Marika's second husband, taking the title of King Consort. The Great Rune dwells within the amber egg that was Radagon's gift to her.
So, man, I kind of forget how Gideon phrases that. I'm going to go back to that final line and talk about it so I could address it a bit more directly.
Renala and her great rune dwells within the egg she so dearly clutches.
I kind of don't want to talk about it, but like one of the more interesting sticking points for some people in the lore is whether or not the Great Rune is the egg, or whether or not the egg is the Great Rune, or both, or neither. I'm of the opinion that the Great Rune is the egg up until the Tarnished takes it, and then it's still kind of the egg, but not exactly. The Great Rune is its own thing, but it was an egg, I guess. I don't know. Sorry, I realize I just made kind of like very little sense saying those strings of words together the way that I did. Anyway. Is there anything else in the Roundtable Hold? I don't think so. More or less just Nepheli, right? Ronnie might be blasphemous too, but she just kept it a secret a lot longer than Rykard. Smart. I don't know, because like Morgoth does call her one of the willful traitors, comma, all. And I guess that, look, another question that goes hand in hand with all this, even though Rykard is a snake, well, I guess he does have his hand as a snake, or hands as a snake. Anyway, would be, hold on, I just lost it because I'm too tired. What did I just read? I just got shot in the ass. Damn it. Ronnie, Rykard, blasphemy. Man, I feel like I'm not going to get this train of thought back. Wouldn't God bless you be an issue too? Not necessarily, because depending on how you interpret what they're saying, you might be missing an implied may that begins that sentence there. So like, may God bless you, etc. They're not necessarily commanding the god to bestow their blessings upon their followers, but it's just kind of like one of the tricky things about language. Like, what's implied versus what is stated. But I also wouldn't want to do like a whole ton of word lawyering outside the pearly gates. You know what I'm saying? go home, I'm drunk. I don't even drink, but I definitely feel tired enough to be like a drunk. Yeah, okay, so Floorboard's got it. Okay, yeah, Floorboard had explained it. Elden Enthusiast says the A gives you the most headaches lore-wise. And then Galamoth asks, he has feet too, right? Sorry, who is he in her sentence there? Albus? I mean... Oh, Rykard. So I was talking about hands. I think I was going to make a dumb joke, but I was actually... I had like a point with Rykard. Yeah, Ainat says, you think there's a whole issue of quote-unquote using God's name in vain too. So that's kind of something that's not well understood by a lot of people who claim to be Christians. So if somebody says, God damn it, some people will interpret that to be using God's name in vain, which I could see an argument for that because they're saying, like, damn the situation that they're in. They're trying to make a commandment towards God to do something on their behalf. But generally speaking, to use God's name in vain would be to say, like, oh, this is God's stream, you know, to like use God to, or whatnot to prop up one's own individual endeavors or successes rather than praising or giving the due praise towards God instead, at least for the, you know, obviously Christian theology. Now that I think about it, I really don't know too much how that works for Judaism and Islam, or even like the Greek Orthodoxy, to be more specific. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Greek Orthodoxy and whatnot isn't all that different, but I was also surprised to learn that Greek Orthodox practitioners don't believe in the concepts of things like original sin or something else. They still do communion. I'm pretty confident. I'm losing it, man. Yeah, Voyageboard says the use of in vain is almost always either in futility or strictly egotistical. Chickalack said, as someone said, that's one interpretation. Someone, Was that somebody named Hidetaka Miyazaki? Right, yeah, I don't necessarily want to get into the whole issue of replacing like the Tetragrammaton with like God or Elohim. So I feel like the in vain part is just kind of like there's like a lot of small things that go into it. Yeah. This village is done for. Please, even if it's just you, old Albus, hide well and still your breath. Wait, what did they actually say? They say bonk, apparently? Okay. I'm not two-handing it. There we go. So yeah, guys, Albinauric bleed white. Alright. Or is it silver? Yeah, I mean, I would say it's like more white in terms of like the actual color coding goes. Oh no, I just had an epiphany. These dudes are slime scholars, but different. Slime scholars in a different coat. So we got some health potions which we need. Ooh, a larval tier. And a hanged Albinauric with no legs. And now we'll be able to talk to Nephili. Here we go.
Oh, It's you. Well, what do you make of it? What's happened to this village? I witnessed a sight much the same in my infancy. The oppression of the weak. Murder and pillage unchecked. A waking nightmare made by men. But this time, I'm a woman grown, and though the suffering cannot be undone, I can still mete out justice. Justice to the oppressors. Let the scars I carve remind them. I am Nefeli Lu, warrior.
Yeah, so Stella brings up a good point in that they think just swearing on the Bible and like lying is essentially another way of using God's name in vain. Yeah, that is a good one. Well, a good one, a good example, and not necessarily like a real good one.
Put this time, and though the justice to let the scars.
So Nefeli sees like this atrocity that's going on in this Albinauric Village, which is allegedly done by Gideon for plans to get to like the Erdtree region, the consecrated snowfield. But I'm going to share a pretty cool crackpot theory with you guys that I have of my own, in that what type of enemy do we actually find at the end of this Albinauric Village? And I don't mean the perfumer up here. This is a bit of a rhetorical question because we're going to see it briefly, or in a brief moment anyway. Hopefully the perfumer doesn't kill me. I'm actually pretty cautious of perfumers because they can just deal a lot of damage. Speaking of dealing a lot of damage, that is the thing that I don't do. He cheated. Okay. Nicholas Lily. So at the end of this place, we will see an omen killer, but in Celavis's storeroom with all of his puppets, we can access all of those puppets except for one puppet, which happens to be that of an omen killer. Now, I don't necessarily think we would kill like a Celavis omen killer puppet, and that's why we can't use it, but I have wondered whether or not Celavis would have wanted to try to get back at Gideon somehow by sending an omen killer puppet to frame Gideon for this kind of mass murder. And if that's the case, it is curious that Gideon just like doesn't seem to care about Nefeli turning her back on him, and just kind of like says, well, it is what it is. She's no longer useful to me, so I don't really care anymore. So anyway, I don't think it really works out, but I just can't help but like the idea that Celavis wanted to break Nefeli away from Gideon so he could turn her into a puppet. Did he just tell Albus to go and die by telling him to still his breath? No, he's just telling him to be quiet so that way people don't hear him. This omen killer took you forever to deal with the first time? Ooh. Yeah, since I had so many, I don't want to say problems, but because it took so long to kill that perfumer, I'm a little bit double thinking my decision to fight this omen killer now, I suppose.
Please, no. Dear me. I haven't a clue. No secrets lie with me, not a one. Oh, please leave me be.
He lying.
Wait then. You're not one of them? Well, what a relief. Oh, goodness me. I am Albus, an Albinauric. As you can see, we're finished. The whole village is finished. The cursemongers have destroyed everything. No one that remains has their wits about them. I beg you. Would you look after this medallion? You must keep it out of the cursemonger's hands.
Hey Oni, welcome on into the stream. Why would using an omen killer frame Gideon? That's a really good question. I don't necessarily think it's using the omen killer specifically to frame Gideon. Like I don't know necessarily if like that would be the connection, as much as it is that we have an omen killer here, but we have an unaccounted for omen killer puppet in Celavis's storeroom, and we know Celavis seems to be seeking Nefeli Lu before we even really have much of an interaction with her, because you could come to Caria first, and maybe this is like one of the limitations of the game system, because the quests don't really update and reflect each other or the progress in your other quests. So that's a very good question to ask, like, why would an Omen Killer frame Gideon specifically? I think it would just be enough that Nefeli knows Gideon wants the Erdtree secret medallion, and if she assumes that this Omen Killer was sent by Gideon to retrieve this medallion, she might be able to blame Gideon for it. But like I said, I don't really think that the theory fully works, even with this kind of mental gymnastery going on. But I just like the idea. Not that I would say that this should be like taken as a fact by any stretch of the imagination. Oni says, you get that, making her crest follow and to also make her more likely to drink that unknown potion. You were just wondering if there was some connection between Gideon and Omen Killers. Yeah, I guess maybe not. So even if you didn't mean that, I think it was a really good question regardless. That was definitely worth thinking about. You like the voice actor for this Albinauric? I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think the voice actors, for the most part, just slayed Elden Ring in the game. A standout for me is Celavis. Just like the way he delivers all his lines is crazy. I'm trying. I can't even think of one that I would consider to be bad in Elden Ring. Maybe. Actually, there's one, and it's probably everybody's favorite VA female character. The one that sounds like a dying cat whenever it gets hit. I think it might be like the default female voice. It's like, wah, like that one. It just like takes me out of the game immediately whenever I hear it. Malekith's voice actor had Miyazaki himself sitting in the audition. I haven't heard that story. My legs will soon fade, and Albus's tone is a favorite of Elden's. Oni asks, regarding Celavis, am I more so on the side of him being Pidya or not? That's a really good question. I'm kind of on the fence. So to say like what side that I'm leaning more towards, I'm going to honestly say no. If for no other reason, then I think if Celavis is not Pidya, then it just works a little bit better in my mind for him to have had an affiliation with Dolores and Gideon and the Roundtable Hold, which is supposed to like be for the Tarnished specifically. But of course, that doesn't preclude Dolores and Gideon from being Tarnished who went on to visit Raya Lucaria and Ranni, but for some reason didn't join Ranni and whatnot. I don't know. That's a really good question, though. Oh, yeah, and then who asked this earlier? Somebody just asked if I was going to crack open the DLC immediately. So it was Florgeborge, yes. I will crack open the DLC the moment it drops, but I will not do it on stream just because I want to enjoy it for like myself. Try to go like spoiler free. Do like my stupid exploration the way that I do it in a very stubborn way. Probably die 200 times to a grafted scion again. But yeah, so I want to like go into the DLC dark for a bit. Once I get comfortable with like all of the things that I want to get comfortable with, I will definitely stream it on this character that I'm prepping for the DLC run. Although there might be some adjustments depending on like if we get weird stuff going on with like the base game quests to access the DLC, or if there's more interactions between the DLC and the base game content that we're just currently unaware of. Dylan wishes we had more player voices sometimes. Yeah, I feel that. Oh, the VA for Malekith is a narrator for 40k books. He really knows how to make demonic growls and sounds like that. That's awesome if that's true. Florgeborge wants to be a voice actor. It seems fun, and you have a penchant for doing different voices. A killer Kermit the Frog and a mediocre Carl Weezer, to name a few. So yeah, I've said this before on a stream like a long time ago at this point, that when I was a kid, I thought it'd be really cool to be a voice actor because I thought, you know, cartoons are cool as hell. The voice actors for cartoons are kind of cool as hell. But I think the reality of it is a lot more grueling than one would imagine. And even just doing the voice work for my channel is kind of a bit of a pain in the ass in terms of like intentionally slowing my words down, articulating things well, and also trying to not sound monotone is a really difficult task. So I think trying to add an extra couple layers on that in trying to naturally convey a character's thoughts or feelings while delivering such lines, and also trying to remain articulate while doing so, is a lot more work than I would have ever imagined until I tried, like, delivering lines articulately myself. Galamoth can't stand Radagon's voice. Understandable. Yeah, and Dylan says vocal control in some ways is harder than vocal range. Absolutely. And that's like one of... So in my head, I have an amazing vocal control that I can't necessarily replicate super well with my voice, which is just tragic. The guy in my head is way more eloquent than the guy controlling my voice. And Jigalag says, as a DM for your friends, sometimes you do feel like a voice actor. I think that's a pretty equivalent experience, to be fair. If you're like doing it right, but of course, like, there's a lot of other smaller elements which go into it, like talking well into a microphone, not having mouth noises. It's pretty rough. Floorgeborge isn't going to kill Moga or Dawn because they're too lazy to get either of them in less than a week. Fair enough. Alright, let's go back to Albus.
And if you should meet the young Albinauric Latena, then please give it to her. A chosen land awaits us Albinaurics. The medallion is the key that leads to the city. It's only a quaint treasure for we who cannot make the journey. But for dear Latena, it is needed to fulfill her purpose.
So it does really stand out to me, and this is stupid and not really important at all, when we get like the super British spellings of the words. So fulfill only having one L at the very end of it versus two. And the same thing with willful when Morgott calls us willful traitors all. So that doesn't really matter, but it's just kind of funny that this is technically supposed to be the North American localization as opposed to like the PAL version. Yeah, and Stella says, voice acting pay is awful. There was a strike against a bunch of video game companies in 2016. True story there.
My legs will soon fade, and with them my life. Alas, this is the immovable fate of all Albinaurics.
Alright, so Bart said the thing, and Albus is disappearing. I don't really know how I feel about the Curse of the Albinaurics, like whether or not it's not too bad in the grand scheme of things, but I guess I also wonder how long these things live. I also wonder if the second gens disappear like the first gens too, because... What did I aggro? The Albinauric all the way down there, or is there something here? Can't tell with the grass sometimes. Okay, nothing at all. So I do like that when you try to look at the Albinaurics in the village, you can actually see their legs literally fading away. Pretty trippy. Actually, now that I think about it, it kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy 16 with their like lithification. I was not expecting that much of a curve. He cheated. Glintstone Firefly. Damn it, it disappeared. I wanted to try and use it or catch it before it disappeared. Alright, so I guess I'll get rid of the Albinaurics because of the stupid combat music annoys me in Liurnia. Also, where did that tumbleweed come from? Like, I've seen tumbleweed in the game before, but I just don't remember there being any on a random ass bridge in Liurnia. It's kind of funny. So I'm gonna go ahead and summon Nefeli for the Omen Killer, because it's not a particularly difficult fight, and it's just kind of fun to have stuff like this on occasion. And watching me get got by a dog anyway after saying the fight isn't that bad. Galmoth says, whoa, they're fading into the Shadowlands. Feet first, maybe. Can we imagine a more characteronymic name for Albus? I'm sorry, what do you mean by characteronymic? Oh no, imagine Albinauric legs in the Shadowlands just floating around or wandering around. It just kind of makes me think of how in Castle Stormvale there's a bunch of random arms on the wall. Yes, I'm not entirely worried about the Omen Killer dudes because they're not super strong against jumping attacks. They might have like 1 or 2 attacks with hyper armor, but it's not a big deal. Nefeli Lu, warrior, has returned to their world. So we get the Crucible Knot Talisman. Oh man, I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm way too tired for this. One of my favorite items, of course. And a Rune Arc. Oh, that's our first time picking up a Rune Arc? I guess we saw it at the shop but didn't buy one. Thought there's a third dog. One over here, yep. Alright, so that was the Omen Killer, which more or less sacrificed the entire Albinauric Village, allegedly. It is weird to me that Albus calls the Omen Killer a cursemonger. And my first time playing through the game, I'm like, who the hell is this cursemonger guy? I've never heard of him before, only to later find out that it was Gideon. Just because, like, was that something earlier in development where Gideon was more affiliated with curses to be called a cursemonger? But not really. It's just one of those things. It's like another random name that we don't learn about until we learn about it. Alright, so I think there's a little bit of treasure over here that I want to double check to see before we talk to Nefeli. You love the Omen Killer Spirit Ashes for staggering a Millennia out of nowhere? Out of the waterfowl dance? I've not really used those Spirit Ashes now that you mention it. Bonk. Galma says this is making you want to start yet another new game. Whoopsies. My fault. Got another Erdtree flower. For some reason, that dude reminded me of a black dumpling guy. And because I'm like so sleep deprived and like a little bit delirious, I just had like a flashback of Ed, and Eddie. Although instead of Ed smacking somebody's belly and shouting, "Pink belly," it was just like, "Black dumpling." Just shows you my state of mind right now. Alright, so we got Smowtown's White Whale description with the Albinauric blood clot. I'll go ahead and read that one for sure though. And then we'll talk to Nefeli. Did I rest after doing all these ones? No, maybe not. So maybe I'll be able to listen. Oh no, I did. I'm gonna piss him off. So Nefeli is not here yet, so I guess I need to rest. 2 ways of doing that though. Oni said they were wondering, but are omens technically a race, right? They're just like a birth defect? I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know if they are fully a pre-Erdtree thing, or if they are a post-Erdtree thing, or if they're just like unrelated to the Erdtree or affected by the Erdtree. And with Miyazaki saying that the Lion Dance dudes were pre-Erdtree, I think there's a good possibility that they're pre-Erdtree. I don't know what else to say. So maybe I need to rest rather than doing all this. Working for Gideon is a form of entrapment, a curse if you will. Gideon traffics in curses. He's a curse monger. Got stuck on the landscape there. So no Nefeli. I'm like, I did summon her, right? I thought she said more after you defeated the Omen Killer in here. Maybe it's all in the Roundtable Hold after all. Still no grace? Ah, beautiful. Head? And then Ash King says, maybe Cursemonger simply means Gideon brought the disaster to the village. Oh yeah, I don't think he's like literally bringing curses to them. Although maybe they are, because they're an omen killer and they would have dealt with omens. Yeah, I never took it like super literally. I was just very confused because Gideon is called the all-knowing and all this other crap in other contexts. But this is pretty much the only time he's called Cursemonger. Galamoth says, it almost sounds like maybe Dung Eater was the one that ransacked this town at one point. You don't know why he'd do that, though? So, you know, to spread the word, the blessing of defilement. Yeah, Elden, I looked at that interview briefly, but there seemed to be like a lot of spoilers that I wasn't too interested in. So I kind of only glanced around it. The new interview on, what is it? GamePro? Not GamePro. Pro Gamer, something like that. PC Gamer, I'm blind. You just thought the Cursemonger thing was Albus calling Gideon an asshole? Seems as good a guess as any at this point. It would be weird for him to target Albinaurics, I guess. Yeah. Oni thinks it might just be the localization team spicing the dialogue up too. I don't think so, because I think I've looked at that. I'll pull it up. Obviously, I can't share my screen right now, unfortunately, but I should be able to find it. I could also just paste what he says. Yeah, so Jusatsu Mono. Wait, what? Trying to think whether or not Alright, so if anybody's familiar with some of my Dark Souls videos, there's one where I talk about the Pursuer where his naming convention is a little bit strange because he could be simultaneously simultaneously understood as the curse-bound one or the one who binds curses. And I think there might be the possibility of something similar to that going on with the Cursemongers, which Albus talks about. So actually, let me just type this whole like little noun phrase real quickly here. So Imowashi is like a way to say like a terror, or Ozomashi. It would be like a way to say that something is terrible. No. This would be Imowashi, not... anyway. So, this is like the terrible curse-killing one, and then Domo is like a suffix to denote plurality. So, those who kill curses would be one way of understanding it, or those who kill with curses would be another way. So, if they are those who kill curses... It might be saying that omen killers are killers of curses, or it could be saying that the omen killer in this village was one who killed people with curses, I guess. So it's a little bit ambiguous. Hold on. Wait, maybe... Yeah. This is the only two contexts in which that line appears. Or not line, but that term appears. Maybe there was another interview. But yeah, the one that I looked at was talking about like where things were in the DLC and like enemy placements sort of. And I was like, I don't want to read this. But yeah, okay guys. I was going to try to stay up later tonight to kind of compensate for having to start the stream so much later than normal. I will be back to the normal schedule for sure of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time later today. So I'm going to end the stream slightly early, relatively speaking, but, you know, a little bit past the normal time. So I'll try to catch up and maybe stream a little bit longer tomorrow if I get more sleep. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for joining me in the streams, especially if you guys were waiting around very patiently before I went live today. So yeah. Whew. All right. That'll be it for me for tonight. Take care. Stay safe. Last Protagonist out.